boating season is in full swing here. We just got done with a good 4th of July. I've already had several calls from people that just got their boats out for the first time, having lighting issues. Most of these boats have been sitting in storage for the last year. And when you get ready to hook onto it, your lights don't work, or when you pull it in the water for the first time, you have an issue. So I'm going to cover a few things that we see on a regular basis and show you just some things you can check that are very simple. Okay, we're at the left rear tail light on this trailer, and on a boat trailer there's some things that we look for immediately. We first look to see if it's got aluminum wire or copper wire. A lot of these trailers, they're wired cheap. They use aluminum wire. It corrodes really fast. Copper will corrode, but not as quickly as aluminum. The other thing we look for is this little dude right here, the blue Scotch lock, the infamous blue Scotch lock. You'll see these used all over travel trailers, boat trailers. While they do make quick work of wiring lights, they also make quick work of creating a short and a bad connection. So we're going to replace this little dude right here. The other thing really to look for on the trailer is grounding issues. Many times they don't have enough grounds. This is submergible light here. It's different than what's on here, but this is made to go fully under the water. And the way this light is designed, you'll take this eye, you'll put it underneath this nut, and when you tighten this down against the trailer frame, it'll make a good ground. And that is adequate as long as the metal around that stud is clean. So clean that off. What I like to do is also add a secondary ground to this back to the trailer, and that can be done a couple ways. You'll use an eyelet as well, but what we see many times, manufacturers will use a rivet. They'll drill a 3/16 hole, use a rivet, put that in the trailer frame, pop it off, and right now that is pretty tight. It will last for a while, but it will become loose. You can see that it doesn't take much, and that will get some corrosion because both of these are aluminum. It will start wiggling around. It will cause light flicker. It will eventually lose connection. What I prefer to do instead of the rivet is use a self-tapping screw. This is a 5/16 head screw. These will corrode too, but they are zinc coated. You can get these in stainless. That would be the best thing to do. If you are having an issue, you can just go in, clean the surface, replace the screw, and it will last a lot longer than this rivet. So let's open this Scotch light up here. I don't like these at all, so see if we can see any corrosion. So as you see how easy that was to pull off. I think we can get a camera close up of that. There's a lot of corrosion on that. And it just doesn't contact a lot of the wiring. So it does leave room for failure. The problem is, many people, well, how am I going to tag this wire into this line without using the Scotch lock? There's many ways to do it. We're going to use a butt connector. So let's separate that. We need to put this line back. We're going to cut it, strip it back, and see this is copper wire. It is very good. If you were to strip that insulation back and that is green or white with corrosion, just go ahead and you need to replace the wiring on the trailer. So let's take these, we're going to twist them up. This looks like to be some 16 gauge wiring. So we're going to use a heat shrink butt connector. And I've got a kit here that we'll link in the video that you can get. So we're going to take these two wires here. We're going to twist these together. Put the connector on. Give it a good crimp. And we'll put the other wire. Give it a crimp. And so there we've tied those two wires back together easily without the Scotch lock. Was it as quick as the Scotch lock? No, but is much more effective. Now that we've done that, we'll take our micro torch here. We'll put a link to that as well. Just be careful when you're heating it. Don't put the flame right up against it. You don't want to melt the insulation off the wire once it gets going. And make sure that you melt it all the way down. If you don't, we see our manufacturers a lot of time, they won't get it all the way melted down. Well, that defeats the purpose of using the heat shrink connector on there. Let that cool off. You can see there, it's all the way down. That will cool off, and that's a good watertight seal. As I said, where the ground goes up against the frame, there's really no way to make that watertight, but that's one less connection that is exposed. So if you're having an issue, always start with your ground and 12-volt wiring. 9 times out of 10, maybe 10 times out of 10, it's a bad connection. Whether it's at the light, at the stud, and the same way with the side lights on these. They also, on the side marker lights on this, they'll use a rivet to hold it on because it's easier, but they get loose. Use a self-tapping screw, stainless if you can get it, machine screw, stainless if you can get it, and that will just help you down the road. Make sure that your boat lights are submergible. That way when you back it down into the boat ramp, it doesn't get a bunch of water in it. I always recommend unplugging the lights on the trailer if you can still see your trailer, just so in case you do have a short, you have an exposed wire, it doesn't pop the fuse or the breaker on your tow vehicle. So that's just some things to look at. We're going to move up to the front. I'm going to show you a couple other things that we see a lot, so let's move up there. Well, we're back up at the front of the trailer, and I'm going to show you a few things to look for here as well. These manufacturers on the boat trailers and many utility trailers will use this technique. Instead of using zip ties or some type of fastener, they will just tie a knot in the wiring. This is around a chain link, and while this may not be the best, it's okay, but this is a place to check annually to make sure you don't have any wire rub, to make sure it's not too tight and is rubbed through, because this will cause a short right here. So just always look at those when you get ready before you go out. Then we'll move here to the back. I'm going to show you another area to look for. So right in here, it's a little hard to see, but here they've used a washer. So in this washer, they've got the brake line running through, and they've also got the wire. Well, over time, that wire will rub up and down. It will just kind of saw its way through. So if you find an area here that the wiring has been exposed and you have a short, I'm going to recommend replacing this whole strand of wire front to back, because it's likely going to start somewhere else. Check this annually. And just remember, like we said earlier, I got a couple other connectors here I'm going to show you. So remember, these are not good. I never recommend Scotch locks unless it's for a temporary fix. If you are absolutely set on using a Scotch lock, or that's all you got, I do recommend using the tan 3M Scotch lock. It just seems to hold up better than the blue as far as sunlight. It's still going to get corrosion in it though. It's not a sealed connector by no means. They do make some that's got some dielectric grease in it. I'm just a fan of using a butt connector, preferably the heat shrink style connector. If you don't have that, one of the other ways you can do it is you can use the traditional butt connector in the wiring, and you can use a piece of heat shrink. It works very similar to the connector. You just heat it up. You can use a micro torch like I have, or you can use a heat gun. With either one, just be careful not to overheat. This is a very high quality heat shrink. It actually has basically an adhesive inside of it that it releases once it seals to make sure that you've got a good, tight, waterproof seal on that. So hopefully some of these tips that we showed you, some areas to look for, hopefully to help you out. It'll get you ready to get back on the water. You won't have any lighting issues. Just remember, we always recommend to unplug the lights if you can, but I know sometimes you need some lights to be able to load. So just use your judgment on that. I hope this has been helpful. Get you back out on the water soon. And remember to check out our channel for more repair videos.